$100 a year to run, which is half the annual operating cost of a refrigerator 25 years ago. So 25 years ago, the energy consumption was very high because of energy efficient designs. Now it is half of it. And replacing a 25-year-old 18 feet cube refrigerator with a new energy efficient model will save over 1,000 kilowatt hours of electricity per year. And so for environment, this means a reduction of over 1 ton of CO2, which causes global climatic change, and over 10 kgs of SO2, which causes acid rain. Okay, and we have various other various types of refrigerating systems. One is vapor compression refrigeration, which we have studied in our class and also in BME. And in your final year, we are going to study about absorption refrigeration and thermoelectric refrigeration. And the coefficient of performances are 1.3, 0.4, and 0.1. Actually, these absorption refrigeration and thermoelectric refrigeration, the COPs are a bit low, but environmental effects will be less. Okay, and so these are various types of heat load that is coming onto the refrigerator. Like heat load consists of predictable parts such as heat transfer through the walls, door gaskets of the refrigerator, fan motors, and defrost heaters. And the unpredictable part, which depends on user habits such as opening the door, making ice, and loading the refrigerator like that. These are various loads that are coming onto the refrigerator. And what are the conservation measures you can take if you want to reduce the power consumption by the refrigerator in the house? So you can put a board there, and all people can follow this. And open the refrigerator door the fewest times possible and the shortest duration possible, because otherwise we lose the heat to the surroundings. And cool the hot foods to room temperature first before putting them into the refrigerator. Don't put the hot things first, and you keep them outside so that when it comes to the room temperature, then only you can put it, so to reduce the load. And clean the condenser coils located beneath the refrigerator, because condenser coils, when the dust form over that, the heat transfer rate gets reduced. So because of that, power consumption increase. So there should be good heat transfer in the condenser. And check the door gasket for air leaks, and avoid unnecessary low temperature settings. And many people keep unnecessarily low temperature settings. So whatever is needed, we have to keep only that. And avoid excessive ice buildup. So if the ice is also built up in the freezer compartment and all, again, the heat transfer rate gets reduced and the consumption increase. And so use the power saver switch that controls heating coils and prevent the condensation on the outside surfaces in humid environments. And do not block the airflow passages. Okay, these are the various conservation measures you have to take. And so if there is a problem done, if there is a small faulty light bulb inside the refrigerator, what is the effect of it? And if it's the coefficient of performance is 1.3 and the cost of electricity is 12 cents per kilowatt hour. It is the W dot, Q dot is 40 watts, and by 1.3 COP, this is the power that is to be consumed. Okay, so actually is 40, and because of this faulty this one 30.8, and so total 70.8 watts we spend, that is per second. So if you annual hours, if it is 8760 hours per year, if you use, and if you use this and convert it into per year, how much normal operating hours are 61 hours per year, and additional operating hours 8699 hours per year. So additional power consumption is this 70.8 into 8699 watts, and converting into kilowatts, you will get 616 kilowatt hours per year. And if you say see the cost of electricity cost, so finally it comes to $73.9 per year. Okay, note that not repairing the switch will cost the homeowner about $75 a year. This is alarming when we consider that $0.12 per kilowatt hour, a typical refrigerator consumes about $100 worth of electricity a year. Okay, it is a small thing, but there are so many things. If you are not careful and if you do not follow this, there will be so much of energy consumption. Okay, that is about that. And many times in the entropy chapter, we discussed about reducing the cost of compressed air. Compressed air, we use it many times. So at gauge pressures, 550 to 1000 kilopascals is commonly used in industrial facilities to perform a wide variety of tasks such as cleaning, operating pneumatic equipment, and even refrigeration. It is often referred to as the fourth utility after electricity, water, and natural gas. And this is the fourth widely used by common man. So here we have to think about what is the wastage of energy that is going to happen in the compressed air facilities, and what are the remedies we have to take, and how much cost can be reduced. Okay, these are the things that are discussed. So if you take a compressor of 125 HP, which is 93.21 kilowatts, if the operating hours are 6,000 hours per year, and if the unit cost of electricity is this, and motor efficiency is 0.9, then annual energy usage is 621,417 kilowatt hours per year. And the annual electricity cost is this much, $52,820 per year. So the cost of electricity to operate a compressor for 1 year can exceed the purchase price of the compressor. Okay, so 1 year electricity cost, you can purchase a new compressor. Okay, that much is the electricity consumption. And so what are all the various possibility of wastages? Okay, one is air leaks on compressed air lines. So whenever, because there is high pressure inside and outside pressure is less, whenever there is a small gap is there, air always try to leak. So this is one of the main thing, and how to detect it. So normally by normal ears, you can hear some hissing sound sometimes. Otherwise, you have to use soap water over the leakage portion, and you will get bubbles, and that shows that there is a leakage. Nowadays, acoustic leak detectors are there, by which you can find out where the leakage is there. And if you want to find out what is the energy loss due to leakage, and so here, reversible compressor by compressor efficiency, this is the work for the compressor, and the mass flow of air through the leakage, it is like flow through a nozzle. If you remember in your compressible flows in FMHM, you have derived the expression for nozzle flow, mass flow through nozzle, and this is the whole expression, mass flow through the nozzle. And into discharge coefficient, you know that about discharge coefficient, which we use for orifices, mouthpieces, and rears and all. So this gives the mass flow of air. And so this mass flow of air, whatever mass flow we are leaking out, so we are wasting that energy which is spent on that energy, on that mass. So power wasted is equal to mass flow that is leaked into the compressor. This is kilojoule per kg. And so into the number of kgs per second gives the wastage in kilowatts. Okay, this is the way we can find out how much energy is lost due to leakage whenever there is a small leakage. And so it is done through a problem. I will not go through this, but that same formulae are used here. So this is the compressor work formula, which we have done in reciprocating air compressors, and area of cross section of the leak, and mass flow, considering that as the nozzle. And so this is power wasted is equal to mass flow of air into compressor work. This gives the power wasted in kilowatts, 2.563 kilowatts. And you can find out what per year, how much it is going to be wasted. And if you use this electricity rate, and you can see that $913 per year, this much is wasted. Note that the facility will save 11,700 kilowatt hours of electricity, worth $913 a year when the air leak is fixed. This is substantial amount for a single leak whose equivalent diameter is 3 mm. Okay, there may be large mm, and there will be large mass flow of diameter from the leakages, and there will be many places where the leakage comes, and it will cost a lot. And another way we can save is installing high efficiency motors. And because as the time goes on, we are getting energy efficient motors further and further, because the motor work that is needed is equal to compressor work by motor efficiency. So this decides what is the amount of motor work we have to spend, or the electrical work we have to spend. So if I have standard efficiency is ETA standard, and energy efficient one is energy efficient. So W dot compressor into 1 by ETA standard minus 1 by ETA efficient. And if you use those values, okay, so initially maybe some 60%, now increased efficiency maybe 75%, you can see how much energy you can save. Okay, again, some numerical work is done here. And so one more thing is using outside air for compressor intake. So we know that the compressor work depends on the inlet temperature of the compressor. This you have learned in your gas turbines and also in reciprocating air compressors. So normally within the industry or within the room wherever we are using the compressor, the temperature will be higher compared to the outside temperature. So if you can take the outside air instead of inside air for the compression, there will be some reduction in the power. Okay, so that is explained here. And reducing the air pressure setting. As we told in the refrigerator, there also unnecessarily you don't put too much cold temperature. Okay, so whatever is needed, that is necessary. Because usually if you need some kilopascals, you will try to have higher capacity things, right? For safe purpose. But there is no point in running at that higher capacity. So whatever capacity is needed, that is to be used. Okay, so that is the way another saving we can do. Okay, this also a numerical is done. And another thing is many times after compression, this temperature will be very high. It may come to 250 degrees centigrade or something like that. And if you want, because you don't use many times high temperature compressed air, if you want to use low temperature compressed air, that temperature or that heat can be utilized for some other purpose. So you can circulate cooling liquid and which takes the heat from the compressed air, and then we can use that. Okay, so that is the way also. So waste heat from a compressor can be used to heat a building in winter. Okay, like that we can use. Okay, then coming to the exergy chapter, the second law aspects of daily life. So mainly, we know that second law discusses with the quality of energy or quality of time or whatever you say. But first law, it talks about quantity only. And it is like many times parents say you are not studying much time. And they always want you to sit with the books. Okay, so there is no point if you sit with the book all the day. How much time effectively you are using is the most important. Okay, so here second law concepts are implicit in daily life. Many successful people seem to make extensive use of them without even realizing it. So the quality of it. Okay, so there is a growing awareness of that quality plays an important role. Here you can see here a small passage from some journal. Dr. Held considers himself a survivor of the TikTok conspiracy. About 4 years ago, right around his 40th birthday, he was putting in 21-hour days, working late, working out, taking care of the 3 children and getting involved in sports. He got about 4 or 5 hours sleep a night. Now he says, now I am in bed at 9:30 and I am up by 6. He says, I get twice as much done as I used to. I don't have to do things twice or read things 3 times before I understand them. So when you are spending a lot of time, your efficient use of it will not be there. So previously he used to read 3 times to understand. Now he reads only twice and he can understand. So in that way, because the quality of time, when you are good mode and if you study, so the time that you have to spend will be less. Okay, so you have to see when will you be efficient. So some people are good when you get up in the morning and if you read it, the effect will be more. And sometimes people study in the night so that there won't be any disturbance. So wherever you get concentration more, you spend less time there. There is no point in spending hours and hours sitting with a book without understanding it. Okay, this example illustrates that the problem is not how much time we have, but rather how efficiency we use it. For a person to get more done in less time is no different than for a car to go more miles on less fuel. So that is energy efficiency. Okay, the reversible work in daily life, on the other hand, can be viewed as the best job a person can do under the same specified conditions. So that is what is called reversible work. So in daily life, a person should do just that to maximize his or her performance. So whatever you do, you will do it with maximum performance. That is, you use your maximum exergy. Okay. And the exergy of a person at a given time and place can be viewed as the maximum amount of work he or she can do at that time and place. And exergy is certainly difficult to quantify. Okay, it depends on the person and individual physical and intellectual capabilities. And the ability to perform physical and intellectual tasks simultaneously complicates things even further, because you have some physical exergy and intellectual exergy. And sometimes we use both of them, sometimes we use only one of them, wasting other exergy. So which way we have to do? We have to plan it. And schooling and training obviously increase one's exergy. Okay, so all constructive things, they increase the exergy, and the aging decreases our physical exergy. So unlike most mechanical things, the exergy of human beings is a function of time, and the physical and intellectual exergy of a person goes to waste if it is not utilized at the time. So everybody has some capabilities and abilities and capacities. That is physical exergy and intellectual exergy. So whenever you are idle, you are wasting that exergy. So a barrel of oil, that is the difference between physical things or uh, material things and personal, objective, subjective things. So a barrel of oil loses nothing from its exergy if left unattended for 40 years. If you just keep it 40 years, there is no exergy is lost. However, a person will lose much of his or her exergy during that period if he or she just sits back. You are just sitting or taking rest means you are wasting all the exergy, the capacities or capabilities that you have. So a hardworking laborer, for example, may take full use of his physical exergy, but little use of his intellectual exergy. Okay, so suppose a manager may be there, he will be using his intellectual exergy, and a laborer may be using his physical exergy. So the other exergy will be waste. Okay, so you can use it. Sometimes you can be doing intellectual work, making some exercise, or doing work and you can listen to something. Okay, and that laborer, for example, could learn a foreign language or a science by listening to some educational CDs at the same time he is doing his physical work. So he will be using intellectual exergy also. So this is also true for people who spend considerable time in car commuting to work. And it is hoped that someday we will be able to do exergy analysis for people and their activities. So many times in commuting in Pune or Bangalore, we spend a lot of time on transportation. So if you are going by a car and if you use that time for other purpose, so your exergy can be better used. Like parallel processing, like computers can perform several tasks at once. And why shouldn't human beings be able to do the same? Then you can use your both intellectual and physical exergy to the maximum. And also we can use the level of alertness. And all the day, our alertness will be different. And the early morning, during the time, first 1 hour or 2 hours, I may be having good alertness. And later, the alertness gets decreased. Okay, and or even at the time also, after getting up, our alertness gets decreased. So based on our alertness, what is available alertness and what is needed alertness for a particular activity, and you have to plan your time. Okay, so it is like I have this alertness initially at this point, and if it is going like this, I want to do two things. I want to study for some time, and I want to watch TV for some serial or movie. And so suppose, because initially I have high alertness, if I use it for study purpose, so this much of only this much is wasted. Okay, and later while using TV, so I need this much of alertness, and this is wasted. This is wasted alertness. And suppose instead of using like this, I see TV first. So I need only this much of alertness, and wasted alertness is this much. And later I want to study, and I have only this much alertness available, but I need this much. And so I don't have sufficient alertness. And when you study, you don't understand the things, and it won't move at all. So you plan for some amount to study, and you cannot do that. So you have to see, based on our active mind, you have to choose which is better to you, better work you have to do at that time. Okay, and happiness is closely related to second life efficiency. Small children are probably the happiest human beings because there is so little they can do, but they do it so well, considering their limited capabilities. That is, children have very high second life efficiencies in their daily lives. The term full life also refers to second life efficiency. That is how much exergy you are using, how much it is destroyed. So based on that, your second life efficiency. So if you use here all the alertness, whatever alertness is there, if you use all the alertness for some productive purpose, your second life efficiency will be higher. And even a person with some disabilities has to put in considerably more effort to do what a physically fit person does. At despite doing less with more effort, the person with disabilities who gives an impressive performance often gets more praise. Thus, we can say that this person with disabilities had low first life efficiency, his capability is less, but very high second life efficiency. So his exergy is utilized more and exergy destroyed is very less. Okay. So this is the way we can relate to our routine life. Okay, here he talked about comparison, mass and energy which are conserved, entropy and exergy are not conserved. And mass and energy we can understand with our common senses, five senses, and entropy and exergy we cannot perceive it by normal things. But these are related. So these are related to physical mass and energy, which can be conceived. Okay, and so he talked about Big Bang Theory also, and nature's laws are the invisible government of the earth. A spirit is manifest in the laws of the universe. And these laws that constitute the core of the sciences cannot be detected by our five senses. They do not have a material existence, and thus they are not subject to the limitations of time and space. As such, the laws that seem to have infused all matter like a spirit rule everywhere, but they are not anywhere, like entropy and exergy. Okay. So these are the things he discussed. It is very interesting. You just go through the material. And okay, here in the gas power cycles, so he talked about saving fuel and money by driving sensibly. Okay, so again, economical analysis is done, how much a car consumes and per the kilometer, and how many kilometers it runs per day, and per year how much it runs, and what is the money we spend over that. So all these analysis is done here. And so we can reduce driving this fuel consumption by considering variable alternatives. Okay, how can you reduce it? Okay, living close to work and shopping areas. Okay, if you are in central area and if it is near to your work, you can reduce the driving. And working at home, nowadays, that's what people are doing, and a lot of fuel saving is done. And working longer hours in fewer days, and joining a carpool or starting one. So if you three or people join together and go for a place, and that reduces, and using public transportation reduces, and combining errands into a single trip and planning ahead. So instead of purchasing one in each trip, if you purchase all the things like going every day for shopping and purchasing all the things of 1 month together, so it reduces a lot of transportation and the money. And avoid rushing hours on roads with heavy traffic and many traffic lights. And simply walking or bicycling instead of driving to nearby places. It improves health and also physical fitness. And driving only when necessary is the best way to save fuel, money, and the environment too. Okay, whatever, these are common sense things. There is no technical things here, but by common sense you can understand here. And so again, this under average driving conditions, the owner of a 30 mpg vehicle spends $900 less each year on gasoline than the owner of a 20 mpg vehicle, assuming $4 per gallon and 30,500. Okay, so which we are, this is 30 miles per gallon and 20 miles per gallon. It depends on which type of vehicle you use. So at the buying time, driving efficiency starts before buying a car, just like raising good children starts before getting married. So the buying decisions are made now will affect the fuel consumption for many years. So you purchase energy saving vehicles like instead of 20 miles per gallon, you buy 30 miles per gallon car, you can reduce the consumption. And similarly, at highway roads, so aerodynamically designed vehicles have a similar drag coefficient, a smaller drag coefficient, and thus better fuel economy than box-like vehicles with sharp corners. So if you see the shape of this and this, you can see that this is more aerodynamic, and so it will have less air drag or air resistance, because of which the fuel consumption can be reduced by having aerodynamic cars. Okay, so the shape, overall shape is also important because this is the frontal area. Frontal area is the cross-sectional area normal to the direction of the air. And so moving around, the extra weight requires more fuel. And the larger the engine is, the greater is the rate of fuel consumption. And similarly, diesel engines, if you use, the efficiency will be more and consumption will be less. And also the fuel cost also will be less. And so manual transmission, nowadays people use automatic transmission like automatic gearing and all. So that also increases fuel consumption. If you have manual transmission, it reduces the fuel consumption. And so front wheel drive cause better traction, and four-wheel drive mechanism provides better traction and braking, and thus safer driving. And the added safety becomes with increased weight, noise, and cost, and decreases fuel economy. And then radial tires reduce the fuel consumption, and cruise control saves fuel during long trips to open roads by maintaining steady speed. And like that. Okay, what are all the cautions we have to take before driving and while driving and after driving? And before driving, you have to use the fuel which is of minimum octane number so that it will be more efficient. And do not overfill the gas tank, and park in the garage, and start the car properly and avoid extended idling. And don't carry unnecessary weight in or on the vehicle, and keep tires inflated to the recommended maximum pressure. There should not be too much pressure and too less pressure. So a loaded roof rack can increase fuel consumption by up to 5% in highway driving if you have load on that. Similarly, tire pressure should be checked at least once a month, since underinflated tires often cause fuel consumption of vehicle to increase by 5 to 6%. If the inflation is not right, so then there will be more consumption because there will be more surface area in contact with the road, and there will be more friction, and there will be more consumption. Okay, while driving, what are the things you have to see? And avoid quick starts and sudden stops. Okay, so again, many things are common sense, but we can prove it by mathematically and numerically. And drive at moderate speeds and maintain a constant speed. And anticipate traffic ahead and avoid tailgating. And that is following a big vehicle, you should not go like that. Avoid sudden acceleration and sudden braking. And avoid resting feet on the clutch or brake pedal while driving. Don't keep it and continuously on that. And use highest gear or overdrive during highway driving. And turn the engine off rather than letting it idle. If you stand, suppose in the traffic, whenever there is a traffic light, you can see that hundreds of vehicles standing there, all engines will be running. So you can just imagine how much fuel is getting wasted. And also use the air conditioner sparingly because it takes work for the air condition from the engine. So here aerodynamic drag increases and thus fuel economy decreases rapidly at speeds above 55 mph. So your speeds are, if it is above 555 miles per hour, the drag increases, and so the efficiency or the fuel consumption increases. And similarly, fuel consumption can be decreased by up to 10% by anticipating traffic conditions ahead and adjusting accordingly. So you know what are the traffic normally, at what time, how much traffic will be there. So based on that, so you can plan to go out. And unnecessary idling during lengthy waits wastes fuel. That's what I'm telling. When you are waiting in the traffic signal, there is no point in idling. Just switch off the engine and then you can start when the light comes, the green light comes. And also air conditioning increases fuel consumption. And after driving, okay, this is also mainly very important. You have to maintain the vehicle. So if you just keep it like that, so it's going to, maintenance is very important. So the tightening of all belts, the formation of cracks or frays on the house's belts or wires, and proper maintenance such as checking the levels of fluids, that is engine oil, coolant, transmission, brake, power steering, windshield washer, etc., and keeping tires properly inflated, lubricating the moving components, and replacing clogged air, fuel, or air filters. These are all things maximize the fuel efficiency. And clogged air filters increases fuel consumption. And the car should be tuned up regularly. So proper maintenance maximizes fuel efficiency and extends engine life. And clean oil extends engine life. And oil also helps to cool the engine, provides a seal between the cylinder walls and pistons. And fuel efficient oils contain certain additives that reduce friction and increase fuel economy. And in summary, in general, if you can summarize it, a person can save fuel, money, and the environment by purchasing an energy efficient vehicle, minimizing the amount of driving, being fuel conscious while driving, and maintaining the car properly. Okay, these measures are the added benefits of enhanced safety, reduced maintenance costs, and extended vehicle life. Not only vehicle life, but human life also. And in the vapor cycle and vapor and combined cycles, we talked about binary vapor cycles. So somebody asked me sometime, what is the binary vapor cycle? Okay, with the exception of a few specialized applications, the working fluid predominantly used in vapor power cycles is water. Water is the best working fluid currently available, but it is far from being the ideal one. The binary cycle is an attempt to overcome some of the shortcomings of water and to approach the ideal working fluid by using two fluids. So here, before going to, so what are all the qualities of the working fluid? So these are the desired qualities of the working fluid. It should have high critical temperature and safe maximum pressure, and low tribble point temperature, a condenser pressure that is not too low, and a high enthalpy of vaporization, that is the dome should be wider at that pressure or temperature, a saturation dome that resembles an inverted U, and good heat transfer characteristic, and other properties such as being inert, inexpensive, readily available, and non-toxic. So there are so many properties which are desirable, and everything has ranges, right? So, and if you see any working fluid, it will not satisfy all of them. Each will have a particular range of temperatures and pressures, which is good for that particular fluid. So because of that, for particular range, you can use one fluid, and another particular range, you can use another fluid, so that I can have better efficiency. So this makes the cycle approach Carnot cycle efficiency by using binary vapor cycle. So this is this way. So here there is a Mercury cycle and steam cycle, and so this is the Carnot cycle for the Mercury, and this is the Rankine cycle for the Mercury. This is Rankine cycle for steam, and whatever heat that is rejected from the Mercury cycle becomes the heat supplied to the steam cycle. Okay, so here there is a heat exchanger. So for Mercury, there is a pump, there is a boiler, there is a turbine, and here, instead of condenser, you will have heat exchanger. So here, which condenses the mercury, that heat supplies to the water, which becomes steam. So for this is the steam pump, this is the superheater, and this is the steam turbine, and this is condenser. This is the bottoming cycle. We call this as bottoming cycle. This is the topping cycle. So if you see, actually between this and this, it almost comes like it approaches Carnot efficiency. So that is the advantage of binary vapor cycle. So it is evident from TS diagram that the binary vapor cycle approximates the Carnot cycle more closely than the steam cycle for the same temperature limits. If I have a steam cycle working between this temperature and this temperature, high TH and TL, so you can see that it will be quite away from the Carnot cycle. But if you have these two cycles combined together, it approximates to Carnot cycle. Therefore, the thermal efficiency of a power plant can be increased by switching to binary cycles. The use of mercury water binary cycle in the United States date back to 1928. And several such plants have been built since then in New England, where fuel costs are typically higher. A small 40 megawatt mercury steam power plant that was in service in New Hampshire in 1950 had a higher thermal efficiency than most of the large modern power plants in use at that time. And studies show that thermal efficiency of about 50% or higher are possible with binary cycles. Even combined cycle also. So, however, binary vapor cycles are not economically attractive because of their high initial cost and the competition offered by the combined gas steam power plants. So, nowadays, as I told, all our NTPC power plants use combined cycle power plants, which are gas steam power plants. So, instead of two Rankine cycles, there I will have Brayton cycle on the top and the Rankine cycle on the bottom. That is the difference between a binary cycle and combined cycle. So sometimes some people may ask you in interviews and what is the difference between binary cycle and combined cycle, because both look alike. Only thing is, in the binary cycle, both are Rankine cycles. In combined cycle, the top cycle is Brayton cycle and bottom cycle is Rankine cycle. That is the difference. And so that combined cycle is widely used because the gas turbine, the efficiency of the gas turbine is less, I told you, because of the two reasons. One is the 60% of the turbine work is taken by the compressor work because air occupies large volume, unlike the steam Rankine cycle where the pump water occupies very small volume and compression work will be very less. Okay, pump work here, it is negligible. The other problem with the Brayton cycle is the exhaust gas losses. Okay, the exhaust temperatures, if you see the problems that we have done, maybe up to 650 degrees centigrade like that. And if you see the maximum temperature that we use in the steam cycle or Rankine cycle, it is only 550 degrees centigrade. So you can use that exhaust energy to produce the steam and run the steam turbine without any additional fuel that is to be burnt. So because of that, the combined cycle is of very higher efficiency even compared to binary cycles because the temperatures will be very high that we use in the gas turbine. Okay, that comes to around 55 to 60% also sometimes. Okay, around 55% is the efficiency that we get for the combined cycle. And so I was talking about other refrigeration systems when I talked about vapor compression. Okay, the other refrigeration systems are vapor absorption refrigeration and the thermoelectric refrigeration. So the main advantage of thermoelectric refrigeration is there will not be any pollutants. Okay, and thermoelectric power generation also you can do. Okay, what is this thermoelectric? And if you remember, I think you have studied about Seebeck effect. So what is Seebeck effect? Can anybody tell me what is Seebeck effect? Anybody knows the Seebeck effect or Peltier effect?
Direct conversion of temperature difference into electrical voltage.
Yeah, whenever two dissimilar metals are maintained at two different temperatures, okay, they are joined, two dissimilar metals are joined at 2 points, and one is maintained at higher temperature and one is at low temperature, it produces electricity. Okay, so if you can tap that, that is power generation. And the other things also we can do, if you may supply electricity, I can produce temperature gradient between the two junctions, and I can actually make a refrigerating effect at one joint. Okay, so that is that main thing. Okay, consider two wires made from different metals joined at both ends junctions, forming a closed circuit, and ordinarily nothing will happen. However, when one of the end is heated, something interesting happens. A current flows continuously in the circuit as shown. This is called the Seebeck effect in honor of Thomas Seebeck, who made this discovery in 1821. It is like this. So if I have two metals, metal A and metal B, joined at two joints, and one is heated. And if you can, so when a thermoelectric circuit is broken, a potential difference is generated. Okay, the Seebeck effect has two major applications: temperature measurement and power generation. Actually, this is used in thermocouples for temperature measurement. Okay. So what is the amount of electricity generated? If you know, you can find out what is the difference between the temperature difference between the two joints. If I maintain one joint at a known temperature, I can find out the unknown temperature at the other joint. So that is the way I can use it for temperature measurement and power generation also, as I told, because it is generating power if I can maintain both at different temperatures. And we can measure driving force, the electromotive force, or the voltage generated in the circuit with a voltmeter. The voltage generated is a function of temperature difference and the materials of the two wires used. Therefore, temperature can be measured by simply measuring the voltage. The two wires used to measure the temperature in this manner form a thermocouple. This is called as thermocouple. And you are going to study about thermocouples in your mechanical measurements in the next year. And so these two different metals are, there are so many thermocouples are there. Copper constant uncouples are one of the things which are popular. Okay. And the Seebeck effect also forms the basis for thermoelectric power generation. So the schematic diagram is shown. So heat is transferred from high temperature source to the hot junction at QH, and it is rejected to a low temperature sink at the cold junction at QL. The difference between these two quantities is the net electric work produced. W electric work is equal to QH minus QL. Okay, so this is the electric work I can tap. So therefore the thermal efficiency of the thermoelectric generator operating between the temperature limits TH and TL is limited by the efficiency of a Carnot cycle. Operating between the same temperature limits. Thus, the absence of any irreversibilities such as I square R heating, where R is the total electric resistance of the device, the thermoelectric generator will have the almost Carnot efficiency. So we are not losing any energy actually. There are two temperatures, so they are maintained, right? And we are getting this, and completely there is no irreversibility. Okay. It's not the question of QL is there, heat is lost, but there are no irreversibilities in this, and I can produce almost Carnot efficiency. That is the main advantage of, that is only this I square R heating, because resistance is there which gets heated up, and because of that there will be some heat loss which may reduce the efficiency, but this is very much negligible, and we almost approach the Carnot efficiency. And so here, because each joint will produce a small electromotive force, and if I have number of joints coupled together, then there will be sufficient amount of energy that is generated. So if Seebeck, okay. So the difference between these two qualities is the net electrical work, and that needs to be supplied. At present, thermoelectric, okay, this is the thermoelectric refrigerator. So if I reverse the cycle, I will get the thermoelectric refrigerator. So this honor belongs to the, okay, if Seebeck effect has been, if Seebeck has been fluent in thermodynamics, he would have probably tried reversing the direction of the flow of electrons in the thermoelectric circuit and to create a refrigerating effect. So he has produced power generation and all, he worked on that part, but he never tried for refrigeration, because he may not be good at thermodynamics, he is telling. But the honor belongs to Jean-Charles Athanas Peltier. This is called as Peltier effect, who discovered this phenomenon in 1834. He noticed during these experiments that when a small current was passed through the junction of two dissimilar wires, the junction was cooled. Okay, so that's what he has found. This is called the Peltier effect, and it forms the basis of thermoelectric refrigeration. So here power is supplied here, and heat is absorbed and heat is rejected here. So when heat is absorbed, if this is at room temperature, I can maintain this at lower temperatures. Okay, so that is the principle of thermoelectric refrigeration. So here there is warm environment, here this is refrigerated space, and if I have this thermocouples added like this, so I can maintain this refrigerated space at low temperature. That is what is called as thermoelectric refrigeration. Okay, this is what okay, some more chapters are there which is not there in thermodynamics, and so here chemical thermodynamics is one chapter in this engine where he talked about fuel cells. Okay, this is another thing which is widely getting popular nowadays, and to produce power which is environmental friendly. And people are trying to have automobiles also to run with the fuel cells. Okay, so this you can go through the book. Okay, these are the things I wanted to cover. Anything you like to ask? And another one thing I request from everybody that I want some feedback. Okay, you may give the feedback, official feedback to the administration, to the academics, because unless you give the feedback, you will not be eligible to write the exam. Okay, that you will do officially. Okay, giving ranking each 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ticks and all. I don't want all that. That is official. But personally, I request you to give some feedback so that it will be useful for me when I take the course. So that is not in my hands. So if possible, I really like you people, and definitely I will try to have another subject in the future coming things. But I cannot be sure, right? Because every semester we change the subjects. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. But okay, I want some handwritten, typed feedback. Okay, some things, whatever positive and negative you feel about me, you just share with me. It is only between you and me. It is completely personal. If you just give it to me, I will be very happy. Okay, so just spend 5 to 10 minutes on that. In words only. You don't give me ranking or grade. Okay. So whatever you liked with the thermodynamics class and whatever you found it difficult with the thermodynamics class, you just share with me. Okay. If it is Microsoft Word, whatever it is, I have to get through your mail, your personal mail. You can just mail me some feedback, whatever you like to talk to me or share with me your feelings. Okay, I want that. Please spend some 10 to 15 minutes on that. So the more you type, I will understand, okay, you have more concern about me. Okay, so, okay, we will end with a small story then. Okay. And actually there are, I think, 2 stories I made. Okay, just recently, I think yesterday only I came across about one person, right? So he is Ranjit Singh Bisale, right? It came into in WhatsApp, one video came, and then I searched about him, what he is. So he is Bisale, arrived at Jilla Parishad Primary School in Paritvedi village in Solapur district in 2009, when it was a dilapidated building, completely horrible building, and sandwiched between a cattle shed and a storeroom. Okay, such is the school he is given. In 2009, he became a school teacher, and he took on the task of turning things around and ensuring that the textbooks were available in the local language for the pupils. So because they are in English medium and those are from very rural background people, they don't know reading English and all. And to make the learning quick, what he has done is, actually he is not of that local language. He learned the local language and he translated all the books into the local language of the pupils, and then he supplied them. And not only that, Desale not only translated the class textbooks into his pupils' mother tongue, but also embedded them with unique QR codes to give student access to audio poems, video lectures, stories, and assignments. Just imagine how much time you would have spent to translate all of the books of various classes, various subjects. And the impact of his interventions has been that there are now no teenage marriages in the village and 100% attendance of girls at the school. Okay, really, I was really impressed. Okay, how he was known to the world. Okay, Ranjit Singh Desale won the Global Teacher Prize 2020 in recognition of his efforts to promote girls' education. The 31-year-old Ranjit Singh Desale generously declared that he will split. So, how much money he got? It is $1 million, USD $1 million he has got, and he told he will split half of the prize money with the top 10 fellow finalists. He told the remaining 9 finalists he want to give that $500,000 to them. On the generosity of his behavior, Desale told Stephen Fry, who is the judge there, and he told, I believe that if I share my prize money with 9 teachers, I can scale up their work. Because all of them are almost equal to him, and they are also doing some social work. And he thought if they are also encouraged, so there will be multiple increase in the positive work that he can put into it. So he added that he wanted his fellow finalists to continue their work and said, we can reach out and lighten the lives of many students. The primary school teacher from a village in Maharashtra made headlines in October, just October 2020 only, when his name cropped up in the top 10 finalists for the USD 1 million annual Global Teacher Prize 2020, recognizing the efforts of promotion of girls' education and triggering QR codes. Okay. So this is really, I was so much thrilled to know about him. Okay, this is I want to share with you. And there is another small story, right? And with this, I will conclude. A popular speaker started off a seminar by holding up a $20 bill. A crowd of 200 had gathered to hear him speak. He asked, who would like this $20 bill? 200 hands, all 200 hands went up. He said, I am going to give this $20 to one of you, but first let me do this. He crumpled the bill up completely. He then asked, who still wants it? All 200 hands were still raised. Well, he replied, what if I do this? Then he dropped the bill on the ground and stomped on it with his shoes. He picked it up and showed it to the crowd. The bill was all crumpled and dirty. Now who still wants it? All the hands still went up. Okay, now the message that we want to give is, my friends, I have just showed you a very important lesson. No matter what I did to the money, you still wanted it because it did not decrease its value. It was still worth $20. Many times in our lives, life crumples us and grinds us into dirt. We make bad decisions or deal with poor circumstances, and many times we feel worthless. So sometimes because of that, people get frustrated, depressed, commit suicide and all. So what he says is, but no matter what has happened or what will happen, you will never lose your value. You are special, you are unique, and don't ever forget it. Okay, so this is what I really liked it and wanted to share with you. Okay, I think now I conclude this. Anything else you want to ask, you ask me. And about final exam, I still don't know exactly what is the plan, but instead of 30 marks, there will be 40 marks, and similar pattern may be there, one more problem may be there, or 5 problems of 8 marks or something. It can be in any way. But you know that it is for 40 marks and it is LMS. And the syllabus that is for the final exam, it is based on what is covered in the B section. So we just talk to the B section people and finalize what is that that is covered. Anything you like to talk or ask? Okay, otherwise, wish you all the best. Good luck. mid-exam marks, when you are free for preparation of your exams, I will do mid-valuation. Right? So I'll try to give it before the starting of the final exam because it requires a lot of time and effort. So I pushed it to the end. Otherwise, I used to give it immediately, just like your minor exams, you got marks immediately. In the same way, I used to do. But thank you all once again, and thank you very much for your cooperation and patient hearing, listening. So I told you we don't know who will be allotted what subject. Okay. So for the next semester, maybe after 1 week, we are going to have a section meeting where we decide who will take which subject and all. So till then, nobody is sure of what anybody gets. Okay. Thank you, Raman. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Sharif. Thank you, Ras. Thank you, Karthik. Thank you, Saitisa. Thank you, Vamsi. You can stop recording.